We're ranking the Mariners farm system this week, starting with prospects 30 through 21. Coming at you. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Tuesday, February 18th, 2025. This is Tony Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're kicking off our re-rank of the Mariners farm system today with prospects 30 through 21. We last did this after the trade deadline, and not much has changed with the organization, frankly. They didn't trade any of these guys this winter. Now, we do have a few extra weeks of ball that was played after our last list came out, as well as the Fall League, and of course, the international signing period has passed. So there are quite a few differences you'll see between our last list and this one. But before we get into it, if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, check out our Patreon. All you have to do to check that out is click the link in the description of this episode. So if you're new to our prospect rankings, here's how it works. Colby puts together a top 30 list. I put together a top 30 list. And then using a points-based system, we combine those lists into one master list. And that's the list that we'll be going over today. Now, Colby is a bit peeved with me based on some restrictions that I put in place. Colby, would you like to share with the class what those were?
Yeah, apparently Austin Shenton isn't a prospect because he has 50 plate appearances in Major League Baseball, so he's out.
No, because he has 75 days on the active roster, which makes him no longer qualified to be a prospect by MLB standards.
He has 50 plate appearances. And this guy is a finished product, is what you're saying. This is what it is.
According to Major League Baseball, he is not a prospect.
Austin is worthless. He has no value on a prospect list because he has 50 plate appearances with a 120 WRC plus in them, by the way, after crushing the International League, which is not a hitter's haven like the PCL. But no, he doesn't count because, he sat on the bench for too many games. Cool. Great system. Tie.
Ryan Blas also did not make the cut because he has 61 days.
Yeah, 1 day over ties ridiculous little.
He's not on Pipeline's list.
He tried to take Taylor off the list too, by the way, if you're a Troy Taylor fan. So
because initially I read on Google that it was 45 days, but apparently it's 60
to be eligible for the PPI pick thing. Yes, it's 60. You can have less than 60 days and still be considered a rookie. Okay. So, there you go. I guess Austin Shenton is a veteran now because of those 50 plate appearances, so he doesn't deserve to be on this list.
I didn't make the rules.
For shame. You get to explain to Ryan Bliss and Austin Shenton why you hate them.
I mean, for the so-called Austin Shenton fanboy, you had him 25th on your initial list.
So good the Mariners system is.
Yeah. You also had Ryan Bliss 16th, for those of you that are curious where those two guys would have ranked on Colby's list.
Notice Ty didn't say he ever put them on the list. He just wanted them off the list. So either he waited till the last minute to put his list together, or he purposely targeted Ryan Bliss and Austin Shenton, knowing that they would be on my list, and he just wanted to try and screw me over literally at like midnight last night. So
I had Shenton 22nd, and I had Bliss 17th.
Yeah, sure you did.
I did.
I can't prove it. You never sent me your list.
It's true.
So,
it's true.
I guess I'll just have to take your word for it. Not.
Sure. So with that out of the way, and that said, let's get into the top 30, starting with, of course, number 30. And that's Carlos Jimenez, 22-year-old outfielder. Colby had him 27th on his list. I didn't have him ranked. He was 28th the last time we did this. What are your thoughts on Jimenez?
Yeah, he had a nice year at Modesto last year, which, by the way, is just A ball. Low A doesn't exist, so your chart is already wrong. Just A ball.
It's always low A to me. Like X is always Twitter to me.
Those are two different things. But anyways, yeah, he had a nice year last year. 21 years old, though, so it's not like he was super young for that group. Not old for that level, but not young either. And it was, pretty good year for him. Like I said, a 146 WRC plus, 15% walk rate last year. That's pretty interesting. He can steal some bags. He's got above average raw power. Hasn't quite translated to over the fence power quite yet. If it does, then the profile changes pretty significantly. But he'll get, I assume he'll get sent up to Everett to start this year, and he'll get challenged there. So we'll see. The strikeout rates are still really good. But as he, creeps up in levels, obviously the difficulty goes up, and we'll see how he adjusts to that. So yeah, Jimenez, 21, 22 years old now, walks, pretty good defender, steals some bags, got some pop. Can he put it all together? Is the hit tool there to be an everyday player or a platoon player, or is he just kind of going to end up being a 4A guy? This is usually a tipping point for a lot of prospects like Jimenez. He gets pushed up to the next level, and usually it's right around AA where these guys kind of start to separate themselves into legitimate prospects versus or depth. Jimenez could go either way. So this will be a pretty important year for him. It'd be great if he could finish the year in Arkansas. That would show growth. And, being at 22 years old, that's a fine. You're not rushing him at that point. But if he just stays at Everett all year, stays healthy, and kind of has this, good solid year in Everett, that still is probably enough to keep him on the list next year and maybe bump him up a few spots. But yeah, it's a pretty big year for Jimenez coming up, and there's some good tools to work with here. So I think he's an interesting guy to watch.
Coming in at number 29 is Blas Castano, 26-year-old righty down in Tacoma. I had him 27th on my list. Colby didn't have him ranked, and he wasn't ranked the last time we did this. So the reason Castano's on this list, I mean, at this point in the list, we're just throwing darts, right?
Maybe you are.
Sure. The Mariners added him to their 40-man roster, which kind of sent up signals. That was a bit unexpected. They also did that over Luis Crivello, who wound up getting major league interest from teams this winter and signed a major league deal with the Rangers. So clearly they like Castano more than Crivello. Why is that? So I did a little digging. It just seems like Castano is a safe bet to at least pitch in the major leagues. There isn't one standout tool here, but he does have a 5-pitch repertoire that is fine across the board. Pretty good sinker, pretty good cutter. There's also a slider that he gets some swing and miss on. Whenever the Mariners do something with a pitcher, we always say this, whether they sign them to a minor league deal, or they surprisingly sign them to a major league deal, or they trade for someone, or they claim them off of waivers, or they add them to the 40-man roster to protect them from the Rule 5 draft. You got to pay attention at least a little bit. These guys, more often than not, know what they're doing.
I'm going to add a Blas Castano caveat to that rule going forward.
All right. Blas Castano is your new Emerson Hancock, confirmed.
Oh, there's no such thing as a new Emerson Hancock. He still sucks, by the way, guys. But I don't know. Maybe the Mariners think he could be like a Trent Thornton next year.
Maybe
that type of guy, because it's kind of a similar profile to what Thornton was when he came up. He was also a starter when Trent broke the big leagues, and the Mariners the Blue Jays and the Mariners kind of tightened it up a little bit, a little more violence in the delivery. And Thornton is a fine major league reliever. So maybe that's what they see in Castano.
Coming in at number 28 is Jared Sundstrom, 23-year-old outfielder. You had him 28th. I had him 29th. He was not ranked the last time that we did this, so he cracks the top 30 for the first time for us. He's a guy that I've seen ranked in a couple of top 30s for people across the industry when ranking the Mariners farm system. What stands out to you about Jared Sundstrom?
Nothing really.
Okay.
I mean, there's not a lot of holes, but nothing really jumps out at you.
Okay.
He's 23 years old. Hit 263, 380, 434, played the entire year at Everett, then went to the Arizona Fall League, got off to a bit of a slow start, and then really finished with a very nice fall season stat line. He's interesting. He's a pretty solid defender in the outfield. 26 stolen bases last year, was caught 7 times, also 13 home runs. So pretty low slug, but 13 homers, 26 stolen bases. It's kind of fourth outfield written all over him. But there is really good, on base skills here. 380 on base is nothing to scoff at, even at Everett. Now, he's 23. So, he doesn't have as much time to kind of really, build his profile out. So
this year's going to be the first real test for him.
Right. Every year is a big year because basically if Sundstrom isn't knocking on the door at the big leagues at the end of this year, he pretty much isn't a prospect anymore. I mean, just the way it works at 25, if you're not tearing up AA, which he'll probably start this year in Arkansas, going to be a bit of a not a great ballpark to hit in, particularly for right-handed hitters. So it's one of those things where it's you don't really want to judge it purely on the numbers, but at 23, 24 years old, you'd like Sundstrom to be relatively close to the big leagues by the end of this year. And if he's not, then his prospect status is probably going to be in serious jeopardy inside the org. But yeah, there's, fourth outfield potential here. And if the power does show up a little bit more, if he can hit some more doubles, maybe, clear 20 home runs, then he might be a legitimate, kind of corner outfield, fake it in center field type of guy for the Mariners for, just kind of that fourth outfield role by maybe as soon as next spring. We're talking about him competing for an outfield spot. So we'll see. Like I said, it's a big year for him. If he goes to Arkansas and he goes to the Texas League and he's really good there, the Mariners might have something here. If he struggles, then it's probably about the end of his time as a legit prospect to watch. So it's a big year for Sundstrom.
Yeah, yesterday we got asked on Mailbag Monday if there were any prospects that people aren't really talking about that we think could maybe sneak their way into a cup of coffee at least at the big league level this year. You mentioned Sundstrom, but even if he's able to just get to Tacoma by year's end, I think that would be a successful year for him, depending on how it looks down in Arkansas. But I think if he is going to get that call up to AAA, then probably did something to earn it. So
yeah, if you could put the ball in play, get on base, play some pretty decent defense, steal a bag every once in a while, you got a good shot to get to the big leagues at some point. And that's kind of what Sundstrom is right now, with a little bit of upside for more.
For sure. All right, we're going to get into the rest of the prospects 30 through 21 in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by SelectQuote. The World Series, the Super Bowl, the Olympics. The world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing: teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. SelectQuote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. Other life insurance brokers offer impersonal, one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more and cover you less, while SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents work for you to tailor a life insurance policy for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Get the right life insurance for you for less at SelectQuote.com/lockedon. Go to SelectQuote.com/LOCKEDON today to get started. That's SelectQuote.com/lockedon. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. We are ranking the Mariners farm system here before the 2025 season. Just went over prospects 30 through 28. Let's get into number 27 on our list. And that is Grant Knipp, who the Mariners apparently plan on having him be a two-way player this year. Catcher and right-handed pitcher at Campbell in college. 23-year-old. You had him ranked 29th, Colby. I had him ranked 28th on our respective lists. He was not ranked the last time we did this. The reason that I put him on this list is I'm just fascinated to see how this goes. And is he going to catch and pitch? Is he going to play somewhere else in the field? Is he going to DH and pitch? What is their plan with him? And how real is the pitching for him? Because that's only something that he did in his senior year, I believe, at Campbell.
Yeah, that could get shelved pretty quick because of the lack of experience, but 97 miles an hour off the mound with apparently 20 inches of vertical break on the fastball. That's fastball value. That'll play at the big league level. So does he have a legitimate second pitch that he can get guys out with, or is it just something that's kind of cool that like every once in a while? I mean, it certainly adds value if he can pitch a little bit. Then all of a sudden, like he gets to the big leagues and you either stash him in your bullpen and he can hit, or he's on your bench, but he could also pitch. Like it's like having an extra roster spot. So that's interesting. So yeah, but the raw tools here are super interesting because like at 97 off the mound with the vertical break on the fastball, obviously a plus arm behind the plate, lots of raw power as well. He hits the ball hard and far, lots of loud contact.
He hits tanks. Yeah.
Yes. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Evan Gattis at the plate. You remember Evan Gattis?
Yeah.
Who did catch for a little while, but ultimately kind of settled in as a DH. I think Knipp might end up doing something like that. Fun little note on Grant. Now, he got hurt last year, didn't get to finish out his year, or he missed a chunk of the year in college, and he didn't play at the pro level last year. So this will be his debut year. I assume Modesto is well send him, but Everett can't be written off here. But fun note, while he was playing and healthy, Grant Knipp led college baseball in slugging on fastballs. On fastballs, Grant Knipp last year slugged 1,200 against fastballs. So dude can hit the heater, apparently. I believe he hit 400 with a 1,200 slug was the final slash line against fastballs last year. So super fascinating dude. Could take a big leap. This thing could fall apart really quick and he could just be, roster. So it's a lottery ticket shot here. 6th round pick. Kind of similar to Brody Hopkins. Now, the Mariners committed to Hopkins as a pitcher very early on. Mm-hmm. But it is just kind of that like really unique profile, and the Mariners 6th rounder, just like Brody Hopkins. This is a really fun player to kind of keep track of. And and
it's not often that you see a two-way player actually come into an organization and the organization goes, all right, yeah, you're going to be a two-way player to start things off.
Usually they choose pretty quick. So yeah, but Knipp again, 97 off the mound with 20 inches of vertical break, plus power at the plate, destroys fastballs. If he could catch it all, like defensively, like dude's probably going to be in the major leagues. So really interesting player.
Coming in at number 26 is 21-year-old right-handed pitcher Ashton. Izzi came in at number 25 on Colby's list, 26 on mine. He was 25th the last time we did this. First full season of pro ball for Izzi this past year. He did have 18 and a third innings pitched back in 2023, but 110 2/3 down in Modesto this past year. Pretty good in terms of the ERA, 2.85 ERA down in Modesto. The FIP and the XFIP not as great. Didn't strike out really anyone, and also walked quite a few dudes. So, so someone that's going to definitely need to be in the strike zone more here. How do you feel about Izzi?
He's interesting. It was durable last year, which is always a great sign to make all your starts and eat up innings as a 21-year-old. Probably going to start the year in Everett. Again, he does have to throw more strikes. The fastball and slider right now are about average. They flash plus at times, but he doesn't really have a third pitch. Not getting a lot of – they're trying to develop a changeup here, and ultimately Izzy's stuff isn't so dominant that he can survive with two pitches. So getting a third pitch is going to be critical for Izzi if he's going to stay in the rotation plans for the Mariners in the long run. And even if he's not, even if he does end up in the bullpen, he's going to need more consistency with the fastball and the slider, and he's going to have to throw a few more strikes with those pitches. So obviously, if you ditch the idea that he can start, you maybe speed up the delivery, add some violence to it. Velocity probably goes up. You just sell out for spin on the slider. That's typically how it goes with a lot of starters when they make that transition. So it does feel like Izzi at least has the bullpen as kind of like an escape hatch. If things don't go well for him this year and next year. But if he wants to start, he's got to get the changeup going, and he's got to find a way to throw a few more strikes, a few more quality strikes. Because, again, the stuff is okay. It's pretty good at 21. Not great, not elite, and the command's not elite. But he's durable. He is a pretty good athlete, pretty good delivery, pretty clean delivery from which to work with, and there is room for improvement here. So Izzi is interesting. I think he probably starts the year in Everett. I don't think he repeats Modesto. So we'll see. We'll see how he does in the Northwest, the Pacific Northwest. What is the
Northwest League?
Is it the Northwest League? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see how he does. 21 years old. It's not a make or break year for him, but if he can make strides with the changeup, throw a few more strikes this year, this could be a year that really, catapults him into the top 20 of what will be a pretty loaded Mariners farm system.
You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. So we got, how many do we have left here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more prospects to go over for today. Tomorrow we'll do prospects 20 through 11 and then the top 10 on Thursday. So coming in here at number 25 is 19-year-old right-handed pitcher Jeter Martinez. Came in at number 26 for you, Colby. Number 25 for me. We had him all the way up to 18 the last time we did this. So a 7-spot drop for Jeter Martinez. What changed?
He stopped throwing strikes.
Yeah. He walked nearly 17% of batters in the complex league.
7 base on ball per 9. And he made 11 starts, only went 39 innings, had to throw a ton of pitches. There's still good swing and miss stuff here. And he is only 19. He just turned 19 2 days ago. And it's really good profile build to kind of dream on. He's 6'4". He's only about $180. So you figure you could probably add 20 to 30 pounds of good weight, and the fastball velo will go up, and the slider's pretty good. Doesn't matter if he doesn't throw strikes. So this is going to be a pretty big year for Jeter Martinez, because if he struggles to throw strikes again, then he kind of gets thrown on that back end pile with the in the days of like Nathaniel Garabitos, where it's like, yeah, the stuff is there, but like, how can you trust him?
Yeah.
He's got to throw a lot of strikes this year, and he really does need to see Modesto to kind of stay on this list. He's already slipping because of how he performed last year, but the raw stuff is there. The physicality is there. He just got to improve. He's got to throw more strikes. Otherwise, his career might be in serious jeopardy if that walk rate doesn't improve pretty significantly this year. And the weird thing is that he didn't have this problem in 2023. He was fine. He was actually pretty good in 2023. So it's not a stuff issue. It's a strike issue. And that's one of those things that probably derails the career of any pitcher faster than anything out there. Injuries, stuff, doesn't matter. If you can't throw strikes, your career is going to end pretty darn quick.
Yeah. The reason that he fell for me on my list, obviously this is very redundant to say about any pitching prospect, but there's a lot of reliever risk here. And if he is a reliever, is he Carlos Vargas? Is he Thiago Vieira? Is he that kind of dude where the stuff is huge, but he just can't throw it for strikes? And if that's all he is, then he's not a very interesting prospect to me. All right, coming in at number 24 is another Martinez, Kendry Martinez, who's one of the Mariners' 2 big international signing period signings. 17-year-old infielder out of Santo Domingo. You had him 24th on your list, Colby, 23rd on mine. Obviously wasn't ranked the last time we did this because he wasn't in the organization the last time we did this. So it's hard to gauge a 17-year-old that you and we haven't seen. We're going off of very limited reports. From the sounds of it, it seems like he has a pretty decent shot of staying up the middle, which I like. It seems like the bat is more contact oriented than power. That's about it. That's about all I know about Kendry Martinez right now until we actually see him play within the organization. You have any additional thoughts on him?
I've just seen a lot of 50s thrown on his tool set. So if he is 50 across the board, I think a lot of people assume that means that you're a 50 player, which, by the way, is an everyday big leaguer. But if you play a game where you don't have any significant weaknesses and you play up the middle, that's a 55, 60 player. So there is actually legit upside here. Obviously, the question is how do those tools develop? Because at 17 years old, those are all projections. So it's possible that Martinez is a guy we're looking at in 3 years as like, how do the Mariners make room for this guy, because he is an up the middle player, and they have Young and Emerson, and do they move Emerson to third base for this guy? It's possible it goes that way. It's also possible in 3 years we forget this guy ever existed with the Mariners, because that's the way it goes for 17-year-olds a lot of the time. So yeah, because he hasn't played yet, because he doesn't have, standout tools, he's going to be lower on this list than he might be otherwise. But yeah, I think this is a pretty safe place for him. I did see somebody, maybe it was even Joe Doyle, throw a maxed out comp of Jeremy Pena on him. And Mariner fans know what a pain in the, Jeremy Pena has been to Seattle. So if they have a guy like that in their system right now, who, could potentially end up there, that's a really valuable player. So he's definitely a guy to watch. Unfortunately, it's probably going to be at least a full year before we see him stateside, maybe even 2. But that's just the way it goes with these international free agent signings. You got to wait a couple years to know what you really have. And sometimes they're Felton Cellston, and sometimes they're, Doel Joseph. And so you never really,
who, by the way, didn't make our list.
No. And so, yeah, I mean, Joseph was a hugely high prospect, and he didn't make our list. That just goes to show you how, hit or miss these guys are.
He had the biggest fall, I think, of anyone that was on our list the last time we did this. I think he was 18th or something on our last list, and he didn't make the top 30 this time around.
No,
I'm just really soured on Joseph.
Yeah, I mean, still, again, the beauty of these guys, though, is that because they're
they can
17,
quickly change.
18, yeah, his profile could change, and when we do this again in July, Joseph could be 12. It happens pretty quick. But we just, as Ty and I, we do tend to kind of hold up on these international prospects until we see them stateside, until we see how they perform. We do tend to lower them a little bit more than other rankings, but I do think this is about right for Martinez. He's an interesting guy, no question.
Yeah. Coming in at number 23 is 21-year-old right-handed pitcher Tyler Gough. 22nd on your list, Colby, 24th on mine. He was 24th the last time we did this list. So another 21-year-old righty, just like Ashton, Izzi. What puts Gough above Izzi?
He has 4-pitch mix, like a legitimate 4-pitch mix. Changeup is actually probably his best pitch. And the fastball and a couple breaking balls are good. They're solid. He also a little bit better in the walks department. I think there's just more upside in Gough. The downside here, though, is that unfortunately Tommy John surgery. So Gough is apparently out for all of 2025. 21 years old. It's certainly not, Tommy John isn't what it used to be. Guys come back pretty quick, and then, they work through it. But it is still a year without development for Gough. So it really does hurt his ceiling a little bit right now, just because it's going to take him an extra year to get to the big leagues. But there is a better shot that Gough is a starting pitcher at the big league level than Izzi right now. That's why he has the advantage for me, even with the Tommy John surgery. But yeah, Gough, could be a number 4 if he comes back and the stuff is all still there and he continues to improve a little bit on his strike throwing. I think there's number 4 upside there for Tyler Gough. And I think that his reliever risk is significantly lower than somebody like Izzi. So it's an interesting little debate you can have there. And I think it could go either way. I just like Gough's ability to stay in the rotation more than I like Izzi right now, and that's why he got the edge.
It also doesn't really feel like there's much room for him to grow, though. So so it's high floor, very low ceiling. I don't think our opinions are going to change much on Tyler Gough, depending on how he looks, of course, once he gets back on the mound.
Yeah, I think Gough is probably going to fall in our ranks when we do this again in July, but that's going to be because the Mariners are adding at least 3 prospects who are going to be higher than him when we re-rank this thing, probably 4 or 5. Yeah. But I do think that our opinion of Gough overall is going to be pretty much the same the entire time he's in the Mariners organization in terms of ceiling and what he could be for Seattle down the line. And there's just not a lot of growth left. There's just not. It's just about getting reps, really, more so than physically developing for Gough.
Coming in at number 22 is 24-year-old infielder Brock Rodden. Came in at number 23 on Colby's list, 22 on my list. He was 29th the last time we did this. So pretty big jump, biggest jump we've seen so far, unless you want to count the guys that weren't ranked in general. But a 7-spot jump from the last list to this one for Brock Rodden, who won a Gold Glove this year. And Rawlings only gives 1 Gold Glove per position throughout the entirety of minor league baseball. Mm-hmm. So that's quite the accomplishment for Rodden. And Colby, we've been talking about, Dylan Moore is going to be a free agent next year. We've talked about Ben Williamson as a potential replacement, and we'll talk about him tomorrow. Spoiler alert.
Spoilers.
Yeah. But we've talked about Williamson as a potential Dylan Moore replacement down the line. Could Rodden also be that guy? Could he also be in the mix to be that guy? Maybe. The key for him is, can he hit? And he didn't do that in his first opportunity at AA. He was great with the bat in Everett, but once he got to Arkansas, he really struggled. 64 games there, 266 plate appearances, /208, 261, 342. That's a 66 WRC plus. That is not good. But hey, with a good year, maybe he re-enters that conversation. Switch hitter, small dude. It's like 5'7", something like that. But yeah, he's a really interesting player, and at the very least, he could really play some defense.
Yeah, I mean, surprisingly good amount of pop for a guy his size. 14 home runs last year. Nothing really to scoff at, especially again for his size. 29 stolen bases. So he can run. He can play a little bit of defense. He's a switch hitter. So yeah, if he can produce at AA and earn the call up to AAA, there's a very real shot he makes his debut next year as kind of a second base, third base, shortstop. Probably not, but maybe. Again, typically when you're talking about, can the guy play shortstop, you only need him to do it for a couple innings or at one game most. So just being able to field a ground ball there somewhat competently is really all you need to be considered a utility guy. So Rodden kind of has a little Leo Rivas to him. So if you liked Leo Rivas last year, Rodden is a similar idea. Probably more power there, but the power is limited just because of the size. It's very rare that you see a 5'7" guy develop 20, 25 home run power to be an everyday player. But again, Rodden doesn't have to because he's such a good defender. He's a good base runner. It's a solid bat to ball skill. Strikeouts aren't an issue for him yet. So yeah, this is a big year for him because again, he's 24 years old and he's repeating AA, we assume. So if he doesn't produce, it starts to get pretty worrisome. Like his path to the big league shrinks really quickly if he doesn't have a very good year this year and at least get to AAA with some success. So he's a guy to watch, but there is some downside here because of his age and because of his struggles at AA. He's not a sure thing to get to the big leagues. And honestly, right now, he's not all that close, which at 24 years old with a limited ceiling.
Well, and this is going to be technically his age 25 season. He turns 25 in late May. So yeah, this is make or break for him.
Yep.
Even though he's only been in the organization for a couple of years, like it's go time already for Brock Rodden. But again, there is a pretty clear path here to him carving out a role with the big league club as soon as next year. So if he has a good year, then we might be talking about Brock Rodden quite a bit in the next 12-ish months.
He's got to hit at AA, and if he does, maybe. If he doesn't, probably not going to be on any of our lists going forward. So it's a big year for him.
All right, so the final guy that we're going to talk about today, coming in at number 21, is 24-year-old right-handed pitcher Brock Moore, one of the Mariners draft picks last year out of Oregon. Colby, you and I both had him at number 21, so we're in lockstep on this one. He was 23 the last time we did this list. So really, my only question about Brock Moore is, do the Mariners think he can start? And how much time are they willing to give him to try and make that happen? If so, because again, he's already 24 years old. He was a money saving pick, but there are some tools here to really like. And if they just want to convert him into a reliever, he could be on a very similar path to Hunter Cranton, who we're going to talk about here in the next couple of days. So what do you think about Moore, potential of starting? where he eventually winds up, what role he eventually lands in, all that good stuff.
Yeah, Moore's interesting because he didn't get an invite to spring camp, and I think we both kind of assumed he would. Hunter Cranton did, who was also drafted last year.
I think that was one of the first things I texted you when we got the minor league invitees list.
Right. So to me, I mean, Cranton has no shot of being a starter. Moore has a small chance, and maybe, just maybe, because the Mariners don't see Moore as an option right now, potentially in 2025, whereas they clearly do with Cranton. Maybe that's why he didn't get a shot, and maybe that means they're going to try and give him an opportunity to start. The delivery is a little violent to be a starter. So there are some longevity concerns there out at, how he starts. And also there are some control command. Can he actually keep it together for 5 or 6 innings? But the raw stuff is amongst the best in the entire system. It is a great fastball, really good kind of change up slider. He's got insane stuff. And if the Mariners just decided that he was going to be a reliever, he could move incredibly quick. Like from the time the Mariners decide he's just a reliever, I wouldn't be shocked if he was in the big leagues within 3 months of that, because the command and control, obviously less important as a reliever, but if that's anywhere close to average, Brock Moore has high leverage stuff. So he is a really fascinating arm, huge upside here. Could be a closer type. Could also be the guy who never sniffs the big leagues because he just can't quite figure out how to throw enough strikes. So there is some floor here, but there's also pretty high ceiling. If he could start, like it's not Matt Brash good, but like it's really good stuff. And you remember Brash as a starter and the kind of the problems he had. And then the Mariners converted him to the bullpen, and one of the best relievers in baseball. And I think Moore can kind of be that guy where it's just like, hey, we need a couple strikeouts here. Go get Brock Moore. He'll get us out of this jam. He does have that type of stuff.
So how long of a leash would you give him on that? Because again, he's 24 years old.
I would have put him in the bullpen already.
Okay.
So yeah, I think for me, it's at most I'm giving him till June 1.
Yeah.
And if I don't see something that says this guy can start games for me next year, I'm immediately to the bullpen, and I'm probably rushing him up to Double-A. I don't know where he's going to start this year. I would assume Everett, probably, if they're going to start
at the least. Yeah.
Right. Maybe Arkansas. They do sometimes like to send guys to the warmer, early season destination, particularly arms. So I think Cranton probably ends up in Double-A, and I think there's a pretty decent chance Moore is his teammate. Will they be bullpen mates? Maybe. I think certainly they could be in Seattle, and that could be as soon as the end of this year. So he's a really fascinating guy. One of the guys I'm most excited to watch this year.
Yeah, same. All right, so tomorrow we'll get into prospects 20 through 11. But for now, that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Tiding Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Tiding Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. We're also on Blue Sky. You can follow me at TDG, Colby at MLB Colby, and the show at Locked On Mariners. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.